civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid. And then there's abortion. A difficult issue for the Democrats to lose on, but they're trying. For decades, liberals have said if only men could get pregnant, this wouldn't even be an issue. And abortion rights are women's rights. Well, that's wrong now. Or as the kids say, hold up.
It's been nearly a year since Bill Maher began his crusade against the woke brigade, and he's showing no signs of slowing down. His latest target? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, traveling the country spreading her progressive gospel. But Maher isn't having it. Stick around, hit that subscribe button, and let's break down his fiery take.
Poll reporting how much Latinos despise the woke term Latinx. It's about as popular with them as a reboot of Speedy Gonzales. Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid.
So here's how it all started. Bill Maher did what he does best, asked the uncomfortable questions. This time, he took aim at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her relentless push for a far-left agenda, one that everyday Americans are increasingly rejecting. Maher wondered aloud, why keep pushing a political philosophy that so many already see as toxic, divisive, and completely out of touch? A reasonable person might pause, reflect, maybe even pivot. But not AOC. She's convinced she's standing on the moral high ground, determined to shove her so-called Latinx vision down America's throat, whether the country is ready or not. But here's the kicker. Maher didn't just criticize her, he delivered a calculated takedown. A demolition so sharp and unflinching that it leaves no room for spin or TikTok-style damage control. And trust me, you're going to want to see every second of this. Stay tuned because things get brutal.
A difficult issue for the Democrats to lose on, but they're trying. For decades, liberals have said if only men could get pregnant, this wouldn't even be an issue. And abortion rights are women's rights. Well, that's wrong now. Or as the kids say, hold up. When the wokey end of the progressive spectrum talks about abortion now, they shy away from that word, women, and prefer terms like birthing people or people who menstruate, because somewhere there's a trans man who's pregnant, and I say good for him, and I'll be looking for his story somewhere in a future issue of Ripley's Believe It or Not.
And that, right there, is the hill Democrats chose to die on: the refusal to define what a woman is. A decade ago, this wasn't even controversial. A woman was understood as someone who menstruates, can become pregnant, and give birth. That was biology, not ideology. But progressives rebranded reality. Suddenly, gender was fluid, and disagreeing made you a bigot. Americans pushed back, asking simple questions, only to be silenced with lectures and cancellations. While the left doubled down, the rest of the country quietly walked away, delivering Democrats one of their harshest electoral defeats, not from hate, but from exhaustion.
More of them now than ever are identifying as Republican. So are Asian Americans, whose support for Democrats is down 16 points since the last election. A lot of that is because, in the name of achieving equity in schools, Democrats in deep blue cities have made it a mission to eliminate the advanced programs at which Asian kids excel. Asian parents said, okay, I wish all kids well, not a racist.
And that right there is exactly what happens when you keep cornering people. Eventually they push back, and not in the way you imagined. AOC and her crew strutted around deep blue states as if they held a blank political check. Untouchable, unquestionable, unstoppable. They believed they could impose whatever radical policy they pleased, confident their base would march right off the ideological cliff with them. But they miscalculated badly. What they didn't see coming was the quiet rebellion. Voters who once cheered for them flipped faster than a coin at a casino. And where did they turn? Straight to Republicans. Yes, the same people AOC spent years demonizing. This wasn't a gradual drift. It was a seismic shift. Overnight, safe Democratic strongholds started showing cracks, big ones. Now the looming question is whether this is just a temporary bump for AOC, or the start of a political earthquake threatening everything she's built.
Latino congressional district on the border with Mexico, which had always voted heavily Democratic, flipped to the red team. And the campaign manager for the losing Democrat said, "We gave up a reliably Democratic congressional seat for no reason at all. We deserve to know why." Well, aside from your terrible attitude, I'm going to tell you why. Because these voters stopped seeing your
now, if
candidate
you've been scratching
as
your head wondering why Bill Maher keeps tossing around the phrases "my lawyer" and "their lawyer," relax. It's not courtroom drama, it's political theater. What Maher is really driving at is brutally simple. Voters expect their elected officials to be their advocates, their defenders. In short, our lawyer, not the opposition's counsel. But here's where the gavel drops. AOC and her progressive peers seem to have missed that lesson entirely. Instead of fighting for the people, they've been fighting the people, lecturing, posturing, and pushing agendas that leave voters asking, whose side are you even on? Maher isn't just pointing it out. He's building a case point by point, jab by jab, exposing the yawning disconnect between what voters actually want and what their so-called representatives are delivering. The irony? AOC may speak like she's defending the underdog, but in the court of public opinion, she's the one on trial.
Parent and wanted schools to reopen a lot sooner than they did after COVID shutdowns, or think maybe your kid is getting a bad education partly because it's nearly impossible to fire a lousy teacher? Yeah, you're going to say, "Congratulations, teachers, you got yourself a good lawyer. The Democratic Party's always got your back, 100%. But I've noticed my kid is kind of an idiot. So I
It
may be
wasn't just
looking for
Latino
new..."
voters AOC and her progressive pals managed to alienate. They lit a fire under something far more sacred, our education system. And the fallout? Let's just say it's not exactly honor roll material. Backed by the Biden administration, the far left pushed policies that made it nearly impossible to remove underperforming teachers. Noble on paper, disastrous in practice. Administrators' hands were tied, and students paid the price. According to the nation's report card, math scores for 13-year-olds dropped 9 points between 2020 and 2023, the sharpest decline in half a century. Reading scores fell too. Meanwhile, ineffective teachers were treated like untouchable assets. So while AOC rallies crowds with progressive slogans and Bernie Sanders dusts off the same class warfare rhetoric, parents are staring at plummeting report cards and wondering what happened. This isn't a misstep. It's a generational disaster. Which begs the question, can the Sanders OC ticket save the Democrats, or are they grading their own political obituary?
Hundreds of billions of dollars in student debt. Okay, but the poorer 2/3 of American kids who don't get a college degree are going to say, why should the people who didn't go to college and make less money subsidize the people who did go and make more? You want me to chip in so some liberal arts college can build a bigger rock wall? You're not my lawyer. A universal basic income probably sounds pretty good to a lot of people struggling without a college degree. And a number of cities have been running pilot programs in guaranteed income. But the West Hollywood program had to be suspended because it was unconstitutional. They set up a program where 25 residents were to get $1,000 for 18 months, but only if you identified as LGBT, the rest of them. Why? Because they need
Sometimes
money.
you just have to sit back and laugh at how spectacularly Democrats manage to trip over their own policies. And I don't mean small stumbles, I'm talking full-blown faceplants. Remember defund the police? That lasted right up until crime rates spiked in major cities and the same people chanting it started sprinting for cover. Or the rent cancellation crusade that sounded great in a dorm room debate, but collapsed under the weight of basic economics. And who could forget the push to scrap standardized testing? Because apparently, asking kids to prove they learned something is now oppressive. As Maher loves to point out, Democrats are basically speedrunning 10 easy ways to lose the middle. And so far they're acing failure. The kicker? These same folks think they deserve another shot at running the country. It's political theater at its finest, except the punchline is America pays the ticket price.
Said he would legalize marijuana on his first day as president, but that the business of selling pot would be awarded first to those who suffered most from the drug war. And you know what? I can't argue with that instinct. The drug war has been a horrendous instrument of prejudice and punishment for racial minorities, so it seems fair that they jump the line for weed franchises the way Indians did for casinos. But it's also what's holding up Republican support for legalizing weed nationally, which would be good for everybody. And these are the hard, practical choices the Democrats have to weigh. Redress the past, or reach out to the gettable white voter who says, you know what, I'd like a shot at getting in the pot business. But to do that, our entire audience. But to do
Bill
that,
Maher
I'm
makes
going to
a
need
razor-sharp point, and it cuts right to the heart of the Democrats' problem. If they want to claw their way back to power, it's going to take more than hashtags, slogans, and self-righteous speeches. They've got to confront their failures head-on and, here's the radical part, actually engage with the people they've ignored for years. Not lecture them, not guess their struggles from a cushy office in D.C., but sit down face-to-face and listen. No judgment, no buzzwords. Polling data and think tank theories won't save them. That's the very mindset that drove voters away in the first place. Maher isn't suggesting they sell out their values. He's saying they need to reconnect, rebuild trust, and remember who they're supposed to represent. Otherwise, they're just shouting into their own echo chamber, while the very voters they need most have already walked out. The clock's ticking.
the wavering voter is saying to her lawyer, the Democratic Party, hey, so happy for you that you have so many other clients and that you care so much about their problems and all the pro bono work you do. But you're supposed to be my lawyer. The Democrats need to be like the lawyers you see on billboards.
Bill Maher didn't just roast the Democrats, he exposed them. By holding up a mirror, he forced the party to confront just how far it's drifted from the very people it claims to represent. From ignoring voters to twisting basic truths, the disconnect is glaring. Maher may deliver his critiques with humor, but behind the punchlines are gut punches, failures in policy, communication, and basic common sense. If Democrats want any chance at redemption, it won't come from doubling down on failed ideas or clinging to ideological bubbles. It will require listening, adapting, and reconnecting with reality. Because make no mistake, if they don't, voters won't just quietly walk away. They'll slam the door behind them and never look back. And that wraps up today's video. If you found this breakdown insightful, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more no-holds-barred commentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.